On season 2 of Behind the Dashboard podcast, we talk to Ahmed of I Still Love Car Audio and Tech. I will admit, maybe we rambled on a little too much, maybe had a little bit fun of internal jokes, but hey, I wanted you to get to know him better, and I just wanted to see what kind of makes us tick. All right, cheers, enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, man, you're speaking to my soul with this because I fully understand everything you're doing, and my methodology is relatively the same. Like my tuning by ear came from my car audio mentor, and he taught me how to tune on a Rain EQ, 30 band EQ, one for each side. And when you're new to car audio, that thing is more intimidating than anything I've ever seen in my life.
All right, I am here with Ahmed of I Still Love Car Audio and Audio Tech. I don't know if I'm going to call it a podcast, shorts, or a YouTube channel, but your face is everywhere.
That is actually surprising to me. I mean, I know YouTube is worldwide and people see my channel, but it's for me, it's one of those things where, like, everybody who watches my channel knows that I don't compete whatsoever. I have no interest in SQ competition, but I love the that side of car audio. I just love it, and a lot of the guys in that community are very cool, and I love to hang out with them. And every now and then, I go to a show with my buddy Darren that you may have seen, the CDT Honda Accord. And when I
Yes.
go to shows with him, I'm there to support him and just meet a couple of guys. But they'll come up to me like, "Hey, man, I watch your channel all the time," and it's almost celebrity like, and I don't want to say that in an arrogant sense, but it's like, wow, it really blows me away that people recognize me because I think my circle is small when I've got more of a reach than I thought.
Yes, and that's exactly why actually I wanted to bring you onto the podcast was because you interact with you're not just sitting in a garage, saying, "Hey, this is how you twist the wires," or "This is how you solder." You're actually out there in the community, and don't get me wrong, some people are more comfortable doing that, right? And it's just the way it is, and I fully understand that idea, but I think getting out there and sharing the love and talking about it is very important, and you seem to have that kind of value.
Yeah, because a lot of us learn through YouTube University, if you want to call it that. It's a lot of shared videos, but as you say, it's a lot of just twisting wires, and sometimes it's overly tech talk. And I'm not a ultra tech guy, but I'm not a non-tech guy. So I've found over the years that my demographic sits in the middle. So the hardcore SQ competitor, the highly knowledgeable person like yourself, you don't need to come to my channel to ask me questions about anything because you already know that. But then they have the amateurs that may not know or think they know, and they kind of gravitate towards me. But I usually deal with people that float in the middle somewhere. And again, I try not to overly tech it to make it enjoyable for all. And even like Dean and Fernando, hopefully I can say that Dean and Fernando of Five Star Car Stereo, they float in the middle as well. And every now and then I'll go to their channel for a refresher, and I'm sure other tech guys come to my channel for a refresher. But still, I try to float in the middle where everybody can relate. I mean, that's my goal at least, to make it to where my channel is not intimidating, but also not so entry level and so high tech. Just a channel for everybody.
No, and I think that's also important that you understand that, and not that I'm preaching to the converted here, but it's just like on my channel, I concentrate on 499 and down, and getting new people into the hobby or new people getting into their first upgrade. That's my audience. Yours
Mhm.
seems to be more of the camaraderie or community, and I know you don't sit there and go, "Oh wow, those metal tweeters," I hear them ringing at that because I agree with you. It gets too gobbledygooky, and why not just say, "Hey, do you how does this sound to you?" You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And I don't want to talk, you know, I'm trying to think of the word, the cone material, or oh, can you tell it's a Santa Peen surround to a rubber? I
right.
really don't think it comes down to that anymore because of DSPs and EQing.
Yeah, and in a lot of blind testing, I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't even be able to tell. One of my buddies, he's just a channel follower. Follower, we've become friends actually, and every now and then he'll tell me, "Man, you should do a demo of a fully entry level system and see how people react." And I see where he's going with that, but I don't want to try to play that game. So, like you, I don't try to talk about materials and which speaker is better per
Yeah.
se, because even though I've gone very far, much further than I wanted to go with my Morel system, you don't have to go that far to get great sound. And hopefully you've seen the video of me and my buddy Darren with the CDT Accord again. I made a shorter video of my system versus his, but it wasn't like I'm better than you or you're better than me, but it's to show a competitive tune versus my ear tune, a somewhat budget system versus a higher dollar system like mine, and show that they both can sound good, sometimes better. I mean, right now, looking at that video, we're about a 50-50 split. Some people love his sound, some people love mine, but it shows that you don't have to spend you don't have to spend all your lunch money to get good sound. You can play the
Yeah.
middle and still end up, especially with DSP tuning, you can still get there. So, um, and again, for my channel followers, I want to show that they love the sound that my Morel system is. Some of them say it's out of their budget, some not. But here's a CDT audio system that's known for being high quality at a friendly budget, and it works all across the spectrum from low end to high end.
No, and I agree. And also, I always tell everyone what sounds good to me, what sounds good to you are two different things. We said we're exactly the same age. We're a little bit over 50, and I really like exaggerated mid bass,
Hmm.
old rock. I admit it. Like that's what I like. And people go, "Oh, it's pretty mid bassy." Well, that's what I want. I don't
Yes.
really care about low bass because I don't listen to anything like that. I mean, when I'll say when we were young, in my circle, like Run DMC had just come out. You had Salt and Pepper, you
Yeah.
had Baby Got Back, and those were the kind of the only bassy kind of songs at the time that was kind of new.
Yeah. Well, um, my car in comparison to a SQ competitive car, and again, everybody should know by now my car is not tuned for SQ competition, but it is more mid bass heavy, like you would like. I would imagine.
Yeah,
Even though I have my sub back there and it's blended well with the entire system, if I was to turn the sub off completely, my mid bass would still handle the low end frequencies that I need. And
mhm.
I tune that way because the best way I could describe it is, I mean, a warmth, of course, but I also want the sound to hug you, if you will. And mid bass does that for me.
No, it's I will admit the one biggest change that I see over the last 10, 15 years is the upfront woofer. And I'm just now we're getting to the weather. Like I know where you live, it's warm all the time. Where I live, it's a little bit colder. And
Okay.
now we're getting to the point where warmth's coming out, and I really want to try an upfront woofer with, and then kind of blend it with the mid bass and see that impact. I'm actually really excited because I got to admit, I learned it from people on YouTube because there was no one around me doing an upfront subwoofer.
Yeah, and it's become somewhat of a trend right now, and I believe, if I could credit him, it seems like Peter from PS Sound has
Yeah.
gotten everybody to go in with that. And luckily, I've actually, excuse me, I've actually heard a couple of cars that he's built and tuned here in Las Vegas, where that front sub, it's like, whoa, like,
I know
whoa,
it's
when it's done right. I mean, yeah, it's because my car audio mentor taught me that the ultimate goal for car audio is to sound like home audio, because home audio systems have, wooden cabinets. They're more of a solid foundation in comparison to a car that rattles a whole lot. Yeah, we can sound deaden our cars to a degree, but still, speaker placement, materials that rattle will almost never be as good as a good quality home audio system. But with the front subs that Peter did, it gives that front impact that you sometimes have a hard time getting with just mid bass and a sub, without the front sub. But some of the cars that I've heard, I mean,
no.
I've heard some cars with front subs where it's like, you could or could not do with the front sub, but some of the cars that he's done, it's like, whoa, man, like you say, mind blowing. Like, I can't believe
Yeah.
this car is that solid.
No, and it's kind of like, and also it's how you use it too, because like back in the day, whatever you want to call it, like the big thing was is like the Superman song was centered at 20 hertz, and so you actually subs only played about 60 and down, and you cheated everywhere you possibly could to get the door speakers to play down to 60. And that was the most challenging part. That even finding equipment that could do it, find the power that could do it, and as you're saying, no rattling, buzzing, or dinging.
Yes.
And now with this idea, I have to admit, I saw his video, and I was like, oh, because now I don't have to play, what's to say, I'm paraphrasing for the internet, 200 and down in the doors anymore. So now I'm not having that problem with resonating, because that's the biggest problem is your arm would touch the door panel and you can feel it. So your whole kind of experience gets sucked to the door, unless you want to be like this, like you're a dolphin or something, right?
Yeah.
Listening.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. When I do go to SQ competitions with my buddy, um, some guys recognize me and they want to hear my car.
Yeah.
Especially some of them hate the fact that I talk about that I tune by ear. And I mean, I've had people flat out tell me I'm lying and that it's impossible to do it. So they want to hear my car to kind of verify if my tune is good or not. Some people like it, some people don't, which is expected across the board. Nobody likes everything the same. Nobody hates everything the same. But people do like my car. But I'm saying that to say there was one guy, I forget his name right now, but he got a demo from me, and he sat in my car really stiff to not touch the door, to not let his leg touch the door, like a dolphin, like you say, because
Yeah.
he didn't want the mid bass in my doors pulling his attention to that side of the car. So he made sure his leg didn't touch it because the vibrations would, resonate through his whole body, and he would feel like the mid bass was stronger than it may have been. So he made sure not to touch anything to just get the speakers themselves and nothing else.
Yeah, and also, I don't know about you, but I'm not a small man. So a lot of times when you get in the car, I used to have a buddy. I used to call him the bass blocker because when he sat in the passenger side, I couldn't hear nothing.
Yeah,
Right.
that too.
So,
That too,
and
man.
that's what
Yes.
I do find with the upfront woofer, because obviously the trend is putting everything on top of the dash or eight, but let's just call it higher than your chest, and whatever application you have, and then having an upfront woofer. I actually think it is, but there's also got to be some practicality, and in my opinion, and I don't, I brought junks. I wanted to, we're just talking, but I agree with you about tuning by ear. Like even I did a video on tuning with a multimeter, and hear me when I'm talking a big circle. And then now I just finished a video on multimeter to oscilloscope setting up. But the truth is, in my 30 years plus of car audio, I've tuned every amp by ear. I never use a multimeter or anything, but I will say I know what I'm listening for. And I think that's the difference when you say I tune by ear. Like years ago, I did the Ayahuasca disc on an RTA. And what I did is I put tape over each bandwidth and said, let's just say that symbol. And I'd go, okay, that one's at 30 hertz. And I'm totally paraphrasing. And I'm like, okay, then I go to the system and then move 30 hertz up and down and say, okay, so that's the instrument I'm trying to make. But I had that reference of what I'm trying to reproduce. It's just like a saxophone. Everyone goes, oh, it's silky smooth. But when you're in a live environment, a saxophone almost makes you go like this. It's so bright. But
Man,
unless you know that reference, how do you tune? And so I understand when people want to use, I'll use the word machines or some kind of measuring device, but I truly do agree with you about tuning by ear, and then also seeing if there's something you're missing totally, like some kind of dead zone or whatever, like Peter's nulls in the doors, which we can argue it all day long, but if you would like to know if you have that null, or sorry, excuse me, I'm talking about the dash speakers. There's a null they always say when you put it on the dash, but I don't know, because
you know,
I'll EQ it out or whatever, right?
yeah. I mean, man, you're speaking to my soul with this because I fully understand everything you're doing, and my methodology is relatively the same. Like my tuning
Huh?
by ear came from my car audio mentor, and he taught me how to tune on a Rain EQ, 30 band EQ, one for each side. And when you're new to car audio, that thing is more intimidating than anything I've ever seen in my life. So when I saw that, I fully panicked, and he calmed me down, and he just walked me through it. Right side is high side, mid is mid, and left is
Yeah,
subwoofer, and you just learn the frequencies. And he would teach me the frequencies, by playing with the sliders. And of course, I can't call out every frequency to the number, but like you said, I have that reference. I know where it should be. Like you mentioned the saxophone. Yeah, I've demoed some Kenny G songs, and the saxophone or whatever he plays, sometimes it's like, whoa. and you have to dial it back just a little bit and get it right,
Yep.
you know, and you mess with it. And I use closed back over the ear headphones as my reference because it blocks out everything. So when I'm listening, I'm not listening for enjoyment. I'm listening for subtle sounds, and then I'll take them off and listen to my car like something's missing. Where do I need to be? And in the process of doing that, I'm also learning the frequencies. I'm not. Some people say, "Oh, you're just in there winging it." No, this is my method. You know, it's what I already know where to start. Like my career
Yeah.
outside of car audio is photography. So when I'm on a scene taking a photo shoot, doing a photo shoot, I already know where I need to start, and then I tweak my camera settings accordingly. So in tuning, I already know where I need to be initially, and I tweak according to that. So you know, me going by ear, as you say, you're looking for a reference, and you know where you want to be, where you need to be, and um, you know, going to talk about nulls really quickly. I'm in the middle with that. I'm in the middle, and I don't want to offend anyone, but I'll say this: like people in my circle, at least, often talk about mid bass nulls, and they say, you know, your leg blocks the woofer, and that creates a null from the passenger side. So I've sat in my car and I've turned my passenger side off completely and listened to the driver's side, and then vice versa. And what I've noticed is if there is a null and you miss something when one speaker's playing, yeah, something's going to be missing. But when you play them together and they're time aligned and they meet in the middle, that null disappears. And I've actually had someone on a competitive scene actually say that and then try to backtrack because they didn't want to admit that it's in the tuning, it's in the frequencies, it's in the time alignment, it's all in your tuning more so than just adding an additional sub up front because the way my mind is thinking, you're still putting that sub in the front in the corner and it's not covering the side that's still being blocked by your leg. At least the way I see it in my mind.
No, and I also think there's things that people discount. And what I mean by that is mounted rigidly, sealed front to back, sealed to the door panel. Like there's a core. I almost think it's 80% of making something sound good, regardless of the brand. If you don't have these say six things, it's not going to sound good. And a lot of people want to, if you said, hey, and people have really embraced sound editing. I will admit, like you have to admit that's been a big change in the last 5 years. But what about having a solid mount and maybe nut and bolting it super solid, and then using a gasket on the speaker to seal it front to back? And that's where you get the real magic of mid bass is actually when you do those things.
Absolutely, absolutely. It makes a night and day difference. I'll just do it really quick. Hopefully, it doesn't mess up the video. But my door, if you hear it, is heavy. I have a Toyota Venza. It's the most sheet metal car you can imagine. It has no real weight to it. But with all the layers of deadening, my car is like a vault now. And I use the Morel MW9s, big drivers for a door, big drivers, and they can rattle my doors. And I've gone in and out of my doors multiple times chasing those rattles until I finally got them controlled. And for the most part, for the music that I listen to, I don't get any more rattles anymore. Luckily, thankfully. But with that, my door mid bass is rock solid. So
Mhm.
me putting a front sub would be either redundant or a waste of the 9-inch drivers in the first place. So instead, I deaden my doors to make them as solid as possible, use these 9-inch drivers as best I can, and my, I mean, honestly, if I turn my sub off, it would be a little gap in that frequency spectrum, but still, these front subs can handle the weight, and it's all due to the mounting, tuning, of course, but the sound deadening, all that is absolutely key in getting them to sound as best they can.
Well, and then also too, there's also the aspect of having a car that's usable and you can do everyday things in. And I do think we forget about that. Like, you might say a small amp, okay, and how it sounds to a big amp. And I know you're quite into auditioning amplifiers, but sometimes also what fits, and also do I have a family or do I have to incorporate my lifestyle into this car? And
Yes,
that's the one thing. Like I'm lucky, like I have a little Miata which has the big for the upfront woofer to go really far forward, and I have an SUV. But I agree with you. But my kids now, my youngest is 12, so she knows not to put her foot on it.
Yeah, yeah. Me, I don't. I mean, I have my stepdaughter, but she's old enough to know not to put things where they don't belong. But I've sacrificed a lot of this vehicle just for sound, and I do plan on getting another more functional vehicle if the need comes to play. But my trunk, if you will, is non-existent. It's all taken up by my audio system. I've sacrificed the car for the system. I mean, I've been doing that for years, man. Even back in my DB drag days, I had a wall. My Sherwin Vega strokers back in the day, I had a wall, so it was me and my passenger, and that's it. So, having a functional vehicle with a good audio system is an absolute plus. But I mean, I use my back seat for groceries, so I guess it's kind of functional.
It's tough. I admit, like that's my big thing is, and not that I'm regretting it, but when my kids were born, how do you have a car at the world level and try and, like you're saying, put groceries in it without damaging or scratching, and that is part of it. At that level, it makes a big difference with stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to ask you. So, who was your audio mentor?
He's not unknown in the industry. He was. Yeah, he's just a guy that had a small shop. I mean, I guess I'll say his name, Richard Russell. Man, just a local guy in Orange County, California, and he taught me. I got into car audio in 1994, and like most kids, you put your first bass system together, you think you know everything, and I'm going to local shops to see what they have because I thought my system was better than everybody's on the market. I go to his shop and he's looking at me, listening to my system, asked me who installed it. I told him me, and he said it sounded pretty good, but I had something to learn. I'm like, yeah, right. But of course, curiosity kills the cat. I showed up to his shop the next day, like, okay, show me what you got. And he started showing me his systems, and he's never done anything ultra elaborate, but his knowledge of car audio was second to none. I mean, even though he never built competitive systems, he could tell you everything that was right and wrong about a competitive system. He knew the game, he knew the industry, he knew, I mean, almost everything about car audio, and he more than anything taught me fundamentals. Yeah, I did compete. He didn't care for that, but even when I showed him my competition system, he would look at it, and tell me what I needed to do. And circling back really quickly, how you say you set your gains and tune your amplifiers and all your system by ear and never use the multimeter. I never use a multimeter either, other than when I competed DB drag because I had multiple amps for my
Yeah,
subs
yeah.
and I had to meter them to make sure they were equal. But outside of that, everything else has been, done by ear by me from what my mentor taught me.
No, and yeah, now your caveat is correct because when I, like I said, once I did DB drag as well, exactly. You're trying to maximize everything, and then you had obviously had a master and slave amplifier, and those are the times to use it. But for the average Joe, I don't know. But I will say, a lot of people, I'm going to alienate a lot of people by saying this, and I use the term. There's a lot of forgotten art to car audio that people don't believe is there with experience. If I'm going to change a hub in a car, I take the wheel off, take the brakes off, I do the four bolts, I put it on. And unfortunately, car audio isn't that. A lot of it is trial and error, what fits, what doesn't work. You know what I mean? Like, like sometimes you're like, woohoo, that was a
Yeah,
swing and a miss, right?
yeah,
And and unfortunately, that is the, I don't want to say the necessary evil, but that's when you find people like yourself. You said Richard Russell there. He, he kind of been there, done that quietly, and he observes what's going on. And unfortunately, that's the, I struggle with it, and maybe we'll have a caveat in a conversation to that too. It's very hard. Like I know you invest a lot in your microphone, so you're able to demonstrate to people on their phones. But let's face it, it's still kind of a speaker the size of a quarter, but you're making an effort to do it. Um, but to say people go, oh, I want to hear a difference between these three tweeters. Like, good luck on a phone, and I mean it.
yeah,
Good luck from 3K up. Like, and also too, reflections. Do you have an SUV with leather? Do you have a plasticky old Chevy? That tweeter is going to sound very, very different in those two cars. And it might be a great tweeter, but it doesn't work in, let's just say, beaming across a hard, flat plastic dashboard unless you're going to tame it.
yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that as well because uh, with me saying that I tune by ear and people do love my sound, thankfully I'm so appreciative that people love it, but I also get people who hate it, and they say there's no way you can do this by ear because they can't. And honestly, the personality that you see on my YouTube channel is me. I'm not the argumentative type, I'm not the angry type, and I'm not putting on a front by doing that on my channel. But sometimes people will come at me, and it gets me to that side because they're telling me that you can't tune by ear. It's impossible. And that to me is because they haven't learned the grassroots way like we have. And they only know certain tech that teaches them what they need, and they can't think beyond that. Like some competitive cars, I've heard they use the microphones RTA, REW, and they just leave it at that. And that's because the equipment showed them what it should be, what the house curve should be, and they're afraid to go outside of that because they think they may ruin it, and they latch onto that. And sometimes they don't even tune beyond that by ear just to make their last minute touches. And when I come in and say that I did everything by ear, they're like, no, because you didn't use REW. So how can you see what's missing? And I'm like, I can hear what's missing or not. No, you can't. Nobody can. I'm like, oh man. So, like you say, they've gotten away from the trial and error to getting in there and learning what it is. And by me, with my trial and error, I've learned the frequencies. I've learned how to do this again to know at least a starting point and then go from there.
And it's not to say that you're not going to still continue to learn either, though. I mean,
Yeah,
you don't get me wrong. You seem like, if someone did something like we're talking about, okay, what Peter with the upfront woofer, I'm going to say is in the last 3 years. And so we can say we're not under 30. And so it kind of shows that we would have learned it in our late 40s. You know what I mean? Of something I was like, that's pretty mind blowing. And I will admit, some of his enclosures and the doors, it's crazy. Now, did he invent the idea? No, but he was willing to share it. And then
yes,
and it got out to the world. And I think that's the other thing with car audio. You might say, like you're saying, oh, I listened to this upfront woofer, I didn't like it or I liked it, or hey, free air or non-free air, all these kind of basic ones are, but now sharing seems to also to get that information out there so we're not in a cocoon or a bubble. Because when I did it, I worked for one guy who did fiberglass, and then next year I went and worked for a guy who did subwoofer boxes. And next year I went and go work for a guy who does wiring and tuning. And like now you're like, oh, you're a job hopper. But we never had YouTube. Like look at us. We'll never meet. Like chances are actually you're in Vegas, so chances are we will meet because I have to go there all the time for work. I'll be there for SEMA. We'll meet up. But no, but here we are. Like that was the one thing I was when I interviewed Derek from Wilson Audio Labs. I'm like, I'm never going to go to the Carolinas. I'm never going to be like, and even the chances of our paths crossing, due to
yeah,
age and family and everything. And then here we are talking about car audio. I think
yeah,
it's a fantastic time that we live in, that we can be as weird as we are about car audio, but there's other people who love car audio as much as we do.
yeah, yeah. And back in my day when I was learning, we did shop hop. We go from one shop, and there used to be like some, like again, my mentor's shop was just basic, average factory system upgrades, making a lot of street banger systems. My SPL vehicle was the draw for people to come to the shop when they see this big monster sitting outside in front of the shop. But otherwise, it was just a mom and pop type shop that had people coming in to get their factory speakers upgraded, a new head unit, and call it a day. Sometimes an alarm, sometimes a backup camera, but otherwise, it was really basic. But if we wanted to see the more high end stuff, we heard about high end shops nearby, and we would shop hop and go to a shop that did excellent fiberglass work, go to another shop that did excellent box building, so on and so forth. So, but we actually had to put in the foot traffic and go to these different locations. Whereas now we just jump on the internet and we can see what everybody's doing and then make our own interpretation of what they're doing and try it on our end.
Yes. but that's the interesting thing with all this. Like we joke about. So I have to ask, what class for DB drag were you in?
I started off amateur, of course, street one to two subs, street class, and I was, with the sealed box, and I think I was limited to 400 watts of power, and then I started moving up. I never went to extreme, but I was a super street wall, one to two, because I had the two
Yeah.
15-inch strokers, and it was behind the B pillar, no more further forward than the B pillar, and if I remember, I think it was Super Street No Wall or Super Street Wall and No Wall. I did No Wall as well, and it was in the back half of the Jeep. I had a 1993 Jeep Cherokee 2-door. So the street Super Street No Wall was all the big cabinet in the back, and then when I moved up to the wall, Super Street with the wall, Super Street 1 to 2, I think it was called. Uh, you could find it on Term Pro, like the DB Drag website. My information is still up there, I believe.
Yeah.
I looked it up before. It's still there, but I think it has my class there. But I had 315s at one point, the Serwin Vega Vega series, but that was Super Street 3 to 4 no wall. But I never had more than two subs in my wall when I finished my
Yeah.
DB drag career.
I did Street A back then. I did Street A. I had a CRX. I was one of those people.
Yeah. What was the highest number you ever hit?
Um, so 1 amp, two tens, key off, one battery, 154, one. That's the year I won.
Woo!
And and then I
That's
did
loud, man.
with the car running was a 56.9, 210.
And is that DB drag style where it's sealed with the microphone in the corner, doors and windows
Yeah,
shut?
yeah.
Oh man, I'm gonna make some people upset by saying this, but I don't think, at least the way I competed, anything outside of that was not real to me. When they did it in the footwell, when they did it with the doors open or the
Yeah.
windows down, it was like a cheat to me because your system, because of cabin gain, it was almost always louder when you either put it in the kicks or open the doors. So for me, when we competed, it was on the windshield, sealed, windows up, vehicle running. I think the rules at the time, the vehicle had no, it didn't have to be running. No, my vehicle was running to get as much energy as I
Super
could.
Street, yeah. Super Street could be running. Street had to be key off with a Group 31 battery.
Oh,
It was
okay,
a
yeah,
very
I was
different
Super
world.
Street. Yeah, I was Super Street, and we had to have a podium mounted head unit. We couldn't be inside the
Yeah.
vehicle because it was too loud. And if I'm not mistaken, I think my highest was 156.5 or 155.6, somewhere around there. And I won a bunch of trophies. I actually won a regional championship once, and I think slightly after that, I just stepped away from it because, like most kids, I didn't just leave it for competition. I would ride around the street banging it, and it was killing my ears. It was riding around, showboating, and having two 15-inch strokers pounding ported in a small cab of a Jeep with a lot of power, at least for back then, it was pretty devastating, man. And eventually, I got to the point where, I let it go. With the weight of the box and the batteries and the subs was killing my transmission. My car was always being broken into, and it's like, all right, I gotta let it go.
Well, that's where I alluded to. So I don't know what year you went. I was in 2006, I believe, 2007. It was in San Mateo, and then was in Laughlin, Nevada, was the other one I went to. But it had satellite at the time, so I can say with car audio, SQ is the World Championships because it's the world. But with DB Drag doing the it was Europe, Greece, everything at the time, I might have won for North America, but then the Europeans at the time were slaying us. There was guys with single 12s doing 157, one amplifier. Like it was
Yeah,
nuts. And what I, as you alluded to, this is me talking in the big circle, is I had to say to my car, at what point does this become a pure competition, non-practical, can't drive it? Like in my Rex, I still have pictures. I had 16 runs of zero. People go, that's absurd by today's standards. Well, when you had one battery that had it mounted underneath the hood, and you had it at the back, and I had a big bus bar, it's for voltage loss. So running 16 garden hoses underneath the carpet is not very practical.
right, right. Yeah. I believe it was 2002 when I officially stepped away and retired from DB drag racing,
Yeah.
and I built like personal SQ systems, but that was just for the car club days and just me still being in car audio. But my teammate, the same guy that's with the CDT Honda Accord, that was my DB drag teammate, and he continued and went to World Finals. I never went to World Finals. I was about to go, but something just told me it was time to not do it, and I just let it all go. But he went to World Finals. One, he was in the game heavy, and actually, if I can say, he's actually who got me back into car audio today. I took a hiatus and just stepped away as a whole, and what made me step away was customers because I was an installer, and the
Yeah.
customers, and oh man, what a nightmare! Every time, unfortunately, the shops that I would work for would let the customers in back because they wanted to see what we were doing to their cars, and oftentimes when that happened, the customer was like, "Well, since you already got my door off, just install this tweeter, man. Hook it up." And it was
Yeah.
constant to the point where it drove me nuts, where I had to let it go, and I ended up selling my strokers. Still mad about that. Selling my Sony mobile ES head units, the CDX C90 and the CDX 90 or whatever that model was. Both of those I sold. I sold everything because I'm the type, like, when I'm done with something, I just let it go. Because if not, I'm gonna hang on to it. Yeah, so I had to let it all go to keep myself out of it, and I wanted to step away for a minute. Also, because of my ears at the time, those subs were killing me. So I was like, if I keep this, I'm gonna put it in another car. But if I sell it, I'll let it go.
Yeah.
So I let it all go, and then I would still look at car audio through YouTube, but I wasn't involved. At least on the surface, I wasn't involved. And then my boy with the Accord, I got this Venza and I just put a basic factory upgrade in it. And I played it for him. He's like, it's cool, but check this out. So he lets me sit in his car and I'm jumping in the passenger seat. He's like, no, sit in the driver's seat. I'm like, for what? I had no experience with time alignment. Well, I'll go back to that really quickly, but I had no current experience with time alignment.
Yeah.
I sit in his driver's seat. He plays some music, just some, not even SQ music, just regular music, and everything is coming from under the rear view mirror in the center of the dash. And I'm looking at the speakers but can't hear them directly because of how it's tuned. And I'm blown away, blown away. And he says, you got to get a DSP. And I said, man, if I do that, I'm going to get back in the game and I really don't want to that heavy. And he just looked at me and he's like, get a DSP. I got a DSP, and here we are 5 years later into this build, and I'm saying I'm done, and I'm still adding on to it, and can't seem to stop myself, and honestly don't want to stop myself, but I'm close to being done still. But I'll circle back really quickly. When I was at the shops that I worked at with Richard, my mentor, some reps used to come to our shops and demo their vehicles, and I'll never forget the first time I heard USD waveguides. It was in a Acura Legend, and I forget the guy's name, but he had an Acura Legend with USD waveguides and infinite baffle in the back, no rear fill, with rain EQs, and he was demoing some music by Usher, and I was actually sitting in the passenger seat. It was so perfectly time aligned, two seat tune that I couldn't believe it was like Usher was on the stage, really in front of me, like truly a soundstage. So that was my first experience with time alignment, and I remember that after hearing my buddy's car, and it's like, I have to have this. So here I am again, back in the game, almost 6 years, and I'm more heavy into it now than I ever was, even when I was younger competing DB drag.
I think that was Harry Kimura's car. I think he's still kicking around. Actually, I might
Really?
be wrong, but I think it was his car.
Okay, okay. And prior to his car, the only other car that I heard that still to this day, man, I can't even remember the man's name, but I'll describe the car. I think it was a Pontiac Grand Prix or something, and he had the horns built into the dash, like
Hmm.
complete. His dash was completely fabricated into two horns, and his mid bass and the kick panels were two 12-inch drivers. He had 12-inch
Yeah.
subs as mid bass, and he had infinite baffle 15s or 18s in the back, all linear power amplifiers, if I'm not mistaken, and USD. Yeah. Oh man, Femk. His name was Femk something. I have to show you the picture. Femk something. But man, to this day, the best sounding car I've ever heard in my entire life. Blown away by far.
But see, that's what I find interesting is that you laugh like you're sneaking. I'm in the basement. Well, like when I got one kid sleeping, the wife's upstairs. You're hiding in your car, and we're laughing and smiling about cars. And that's what I find remarkable about this because You might say maybe some people get this way about golf, and maybe they get a new driver and they want to talk about it. But I find that car audio binds people on different levels. Like you joke about your buddy, the crack dealer, there getting you back in, but he's just showing you some enjoyment for a lot of people nowadays, and a lot of younger people. They might not be able to own a home right now at their stage in their life, and their car is the biggest investment they have. And a lot of people spend a lot of time in their car. So I actually think it's even more important nowadays to have a nice audio system to enjoy, to have your own space, to de-stress, to laugh, to do the air drums. Oh, I dropped one. I'm Def Leppard now. No, I'm just
Yeah, yeah. And I'm glad you put it that way because this is my escape. This is my de-stressor. Like when work is heavy, I'll go out, and even if I'm not making a video for YouTube, it's just a listening session for me because when my doors are closed, nothing out there exists. I'm just in my system, and like I said earlier, it's almost like your system hugs you a little bit, and I just sit here and decompress. And I've been asked before, like, okay, you're not going to compete, but why go this far with a system this elaborate? And it's because good sound doesn't belong to competitors. It's for all of us. This is not exclusive. So I'll share. Let's see. Two quick stories. Going to photography really quickly. When I first got in the game, uh, people used point and shoot cameras, and the DSLRs were set aside for professionals. But now everybody can use the DSLR, the highest level, the expert level camera, or the entry level. Everybody has access to it. So these cameras weren't exclusive to just professional photographers, they were for everybody, same as all this equipment is not exclusive to just competitors. Anybody can buy it. You can't, it's not like you go on the website and you want to buy some speakers and they say, are you competing? Well, if not, you can't have these. No, they want everybody to have access to it. And another short story, really quickly. When I competed DB Drag, and my system was where I could compete but also play music on it, and I had the attitude thinking, man, I compete. There's nobody on the street that could be as loud as me because I thought I'm a competitor. I have stuff that nobody else can buy. And at my buddy's shop, people would roll up with systems that would blow mine out of the water. And I'm like, do you compete? They're like, nah, man, it's just for me. I'm
no,
like, wait, how do you have a system this good,
no.
this loud, and you don't compete? But that was my hard lesson to learn that it's not just about us and it's not exclusive to us. And that is why I have this channel and I make it easy to digest for everybody, I guess.
Well, even look at the aspect nowadays, which is going through the world on gas. So, like, even for myself, like, let's say I had a car and I loved it, and am I going to drive to Chicago next year we're $2 a liter, which is essentially about $8 a gallon, give or take a little bit. And there's some people that I admit, like as you said, in those 2000s, the wages weren't the same in car audio, so it was a little bit tough to buy, say, $3,000 in equipment, and then spend $1,000 to get there, and take $1,000 off work. It's not possible. So I think you're right. There are a lot of, I'm going to say, closet people who would like to get involved, but it's very tough. But I will say, in the competing aspect, I do like that about what DB Drag is on having a satellite event. But I know you're not going to ever gonna have satellite SQ events because that would be pretty cool if you could have, one in each state and they upload their sample. But I mean, it's a whole problem with that. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It'll
that
never
would be awesome.
happen. But it
Yeah,
would be pretty interesting if you could.
that would be an awesome idea. But you get people like when I post my videos, especially on Facebook groups, they always say you'll never be able to hear through video what it sounds like in your actual car. And it's like, yeah, I know that, but that's why I use Zoom recorders to try to help give you an idea because recording with my phone sounds like a tin can. You're never going to get the impact of the mid bass, but at least with my Zoom recorders, when you wear headphones, you can hear how they pound a little bit. It gives you an idea. And some of my videos, I'll actually meet up with people who have seen my videos, and I ask them when I'm interviewing them, how does it compare to the video? Of course, the video is just a video, but they do say the video gave them an idea of what to expect.
And also, though, too, just like you said, like you might hear the but when you hear the music rise and engulf you, so that's the other part of it all too. Is when it surrounds you. I call it licking, you call it hugging. So hey, I go the music should lick you. But no, and that's and but there's also the camaraderie, and there's also, hey, you hear that car? No, hey, I like that, or hey, did you like this, or hey, did I like that? I think there's also a lot to be said. Like if you haven't gone to a World Finals, honestly, I would go, and not to even not to compete, even if just to go and meet 60 other people. And that's how I used to look at it when I went. And like, yeah, so I had to drive to Kansas City, Missouri for USAC finals, and it was 27 hours straight driving one way. Okay,
Oh
but then you get
man,
to meet other people who you see how the vinyl lays or how the stitching is, or hey, do you see how that guy did an install and you're underneath the car and you're checking it out because you meet other people that go, man, I had a problem with the thread, so I had the whatever left-handed thread so that the base wouldn't do it all. Oh, is that how or like I met a guy who did plaster. I know I'm dating myself, but with kick panels, he would put modeling clay in them to weigh them down because you can get in there with your fingers. And now
yeah,
I know a lot of times people put resin with buckshot and make kind of the yogurt smoothie thing and put with the Bondo in there. But he goes, at least I can service it with modeling clay. If I have to, I
yes,
can pull it out. And same with
yes,
free air. He goes, he sealed his rear deck with modeling clay because sometimes you just can't get your hands in there, right? You know what I mean? There's that little area. It's like a 1 inch strip, and you'd stuff it in there, and you're like, wow, and that's what I like, the sharing of the information. But I will say YouTube wasn't around, so that's why this whole community, I think, is supposed to explode in a lot of ways.
you know, going to the kick panels you mentioned, modeling clay is an excellent idea. Me and my boy, we used to use Q forms, if you remember those,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah,
they were terribly thin, cheap plastic, but we would line them with Dynamat. We would line
yeah,
them with Dynamat
yeah.
and try to give them some more rigidity because if not, the woofers you could actually see them bouncing in the Q forms. That's how thin they were. Um, and honestly, the Q forms kind of sucked. They didn't work that good. At least for me, the way I used them, having your mid bass or your mid range and tweeter that far down, it never gave me the effect that the advertisement said it would, but it was still better than having your mid range or mid bass drivers in the door low and having your tweeters up high. It did help with the separation there, but
Yeah.
yeah, we used to line our Q forms with. Matter of fact, they had Cascade Audio spray dynamite back in the day. Spray,
Oh,
yeah,
you're dating yourself. Oh, you're officially old if you remember that stuff.
I wish I could find some Cascade to this day to get to the parts that I can't reach in my doors and B panels, B
Yeah.
pillars. But yeah, we used to line it with Cascade Audio and Dynamatic Extreme and try to get them to sound as good as possible. And but yeah, in comparison to using what do you say, the smoothie effect or whatever, and making it permanent,
Yeah.
you mess it up, you got to start all the way over. Whereas with the Dynamat and Cascade and even modeling clay, you could redo it and shave it off and start again.
It's the one thing I struggle with um, let's say the internet, is when people permanently change their vehicle. Now, I'm not saying for purpose driven, but like where I live, it rains a lot. And so these ideas of cutting out your floor for an 18-inch sub, and okay, I know people use a waterproof membrane or whatever, but I'm telling you, when you go, like you've seen it, you're in Vegas, you get those big puddles when it rains there, and you go
Yes,
through and you soak the back of it. You're telling me the little piece of K-way material is going to, or tent material is going to keep that water out? No.
not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. It's over. Yeah, and I I like infinite baffle, and like the front sub idea is becoming a trend as well in the competitive community, and it does sound great, but it's not night and day better than a good box to me. Same with
No.
same with door mounted mid bass and kick panel mounted mid bass or infinite baffle. None of these changes, unless done like supremely expertly done, they're not a big gap in sound to me.
Yeah.
Um, some people have suggested that I try a front sub, but again, for me, it seems like it would be a waste of these Morel 9-inch drivers to have a front sub. It seems redundant. So I just push my mid bass to the limit of what a front sub would do. And when I hear cars with front subs versus mine, sometimes not even worth any effort. So, yeah, permanently
Well,
cutting my vehicle and exposing the back of the driver.
no, it's funny. And also they're 9-inch drivers. I mean, what are you gonna put an 8 up there? I mean, but no, I talked to an owner, actually a shop owner out of New York, and he was telling me, 'cause like you're saying, is a kick panel, and people cutting it out, and he goes, well, what if someone gets in an accident? And that structural, because let's face it, the cars are pretty tinny, as you know. Like even the accident you got in, you probably didn't get into a huge accident, but just it hit the right way and went. And they said, well, if I buck a 6 or 8 inch hole into the kick panel and it gets T-boned, and the car folds, and there's even a minute chance of someone, you maybe getting hurt more through the crumple zone. I'm out here fear mongering, but it was just very interesting that he goes, as a store owner, I can't do that.
Yeah, yeah, liability reasons. I mean,
Yeah,
it absolutely, no matter what they say, it absolutely changes the integrity of the frame. There's no way it can't. I mean, yeah, you can reinforce it, possibly make it better, but you're adding more weight to the vehicle, and I mean, it gets to the point where is it even worth it? Especially for the minimal gain that you get in sound improvement. I mean, for me at least, it's not necessarily worth it. But if you're doing a strictly competitive vehicle that you trailer to shows, okay. But for a daily driver to cut up like that, it's not worth it. And I said liability that triggered something in my mind, and I'll circle back to something we talked about earlier,
yeah, yeah.
which is about my tuning. People, they say that I'm gatekeeping and holding my tuning to myself, and I've explained to them as kindly as I can. Number one, I do charge for my tuning because it's a learned skill and it's very time consuming. It's not a magic button. I just get in your car and say, that's it. It's not like even when you look at preset EQ curves in head units, they're not extreme. They're just a little bit different, little here, and there. And for me, it's a liability issue as far as putting my EQ curves out there because usually the people who are asking about my tuning are people who don't know how to tune. So, and I'm not saying that to hold that against them. I'm saying they don't know what all goes into it. So if I put out my EQ curves and you don't know the parameters of your speakers and you want my sound, so you try to input my curve, but your speakers can't handle what my speakers can handle, and then you end up frying all your gear, you're gonna blame me because I said this is the curve that you need. So, aside from the business side of it, it's the more importantly liability side. I would feel absolutely terrible if somebody tried what I tried, not knowing about their speakers and ruined their this stuff is not cheap, and people
No.
oftentimes we piece our systems together as you've seen me do over the years, little by little. So imagine you spent all this time and money building your ultimate system, and then you don't know how to tune, you input my curves, and everything goes up in smoke. I cannot have that on my shoulders, man. And it's not about me having to repay you for your system. It's the fact that the devastation to know you've been trying all this time, and then in one shot, boom, you ruin everything, and it's because of me. I can't have that.
Well, that's and I think we'll agree. And I'm not trying to make it about uh, me, but I kind of want to talk in a circle with is that for my channel, I'm trying to make everyone have a good experience with car audio and go, hey, what else can I do? What can I upgrade, or where can I go to next? Kind of like yourself. Yours is a little bit, hey, you have a DSP. In this case where I was talking, and you want to know my tune. But if someone has a negative experience with that tune, like you're saying, let's say you blew their tweeters up, and then they go, screw it, I'm selling my DSP and everything. That's not good for our industry at all.
Right.
And in any regards, and I hope we got the circle there. What I was trying to say is that we got to try and keep it so it is positive, and you don't want people to have negative because there's so many other things people can do with their money.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, for me, I do have this is maybe outside of my well, I won't say that. I'll say my DB drag system was very expensive, and to this day, I don't know how I was able to afford it, but I found a way. When I left DB drag and I had my Diamond Audio Hex system, I yeah, yeah, man. When I
Those are
had
beautiful.
my Diamond Audio hex system, I don't know how I was able to afford it, but I found a way. And here I am with my Morel system. This is my ultimate fantasy system. I don't know how I was able to do it, but I found a way to do it. But it's way more expensive than I ever cared to go with this system. I blame my buddy, like you say, like a crack dealer. He just got me hooked in the game. I blame him for my system being as elaborate as it is, but I'm glad that I went this far to experience it. But it's not cheap, man. And it took me, I mean, for people following my channel, I've been building on this system for years, like 5.5 years easily. And it is not, I didn't extend it for content purposes or just to make it last longer. It's like I had to save up the money as
Yeah.
well as study and find out what I wanted, but I had to save the money to get this. So I would hate, even for especially for my equipment, to have all this and end up frying anything. Oh man, that rips a hole in my heart.
No, and then have you seen that meme that goes, "I hope my biggest fear is when I die, my wife sells the stuff for the price I told her I paid for
I have not, but I totally agree.
it." I think Harley Davidson has, for $15 more, we'll give you a receipt for what you told her you paid for.
That's
But no,
awesome.
if you're you have a family, we know the money's all they know. They pretend not to know, but they know.
Yeah,
But
yeah, oh
no,
yeah,
no, and didn't mean to hijack the conversation, but but I agree with you. We have to make it's such a tough thing. Like, even when I did the amplifier, set up an amplifier with a multimeter, it's like you said too. Is someone goes to me, "Oh, can I get a little bit more? Can I get a little bit more?" Oh, yeah, you can, but you're starting to play on the edge, just like you were saying with NDB drag. I do want to ask: did you have the Max Sonics slave device to tie it in?
no. The amps that I
Oh,
used, they had RCA input and outputs, and that's how I would daisy chain them. We would daisy chain them. Yeah, yeah, with the inputs and outputs, we would daisy chain them that way.
what amps were they?
Concept amps. They were
Oh,
concept. Yeah. Uh, the shop. Me and my buddy Darren, we worked at different shops. The shop that he worked at is where I got all my equipment from. I got all my Serwin Vega gear, my strokers, and my amplifiers through his shop because his shop was more high end than Richard's shop. And he taught me how to link multiple amplifiers and whatnot. And matter of fact, we were pretty close to Serwin Vega. We weren't sponsored, but we weren't not sponsored. I could leave it like that. We never paid full retail, and we got modified woofers every now and then, and little cheap stuff. But we knew the guys at Serwin Vega, and it was one show we were at. I think at the time I was running Fury amplifiers, Fury, old school, yeah, old school Fury amplifiers at the time. But we showed up. We were at a show with the guys from Serwin Vega, and they showed us these concept amps, and they were putting out numbers like
yeah.
world record numbers off these amps. And we're like, yo, we gotta have them. So we talked to Darren's shop owner. He got us the concept amps, and we just started going with concept and just linking them and daisy chaining them and just getting louder and louder and louder. And those amplifiers were underrated and underappreciated. Great price point and a ton of power. And I mean, I won the majority of my competitions with them.
The first generation of those concepts were unreal. They were
Yeah,
unreal, and
yeah,
we did it up here too, and the distributor too. And just like you said, it was so. And at the time, like, I had a Z1 DD amplifier when I did the one, but that was like, it was like $2,300 Canadian at the time. And then you can get concepts for $800 a piece and get two of them, and you have higher numbers. It
yeah,
was kind of the first generation of that
yeah. They were
Asian
huge.
made amplifier. Yeah.
Yeah, they were huge amplifiers, Class AB. At least the ones I was using were Class AB. They
Yeah.
were huge amps, lots of power, never ran hot, and they were
No.
consistent.
Yep.
Very well built amps. I wish I still had them, but again, I sold gear, and I regret it to this day, man. I always sell stuff. I sell stuff to fund the next purchase, and looking back, I had some good stuff, man, and it brings a
So
nostalgic tear to my.
what's the one piece that got away? The wired remote for your CDX90?
You know, man, looking back, and I hate to say this, but I don't know how to verbalize it any other way. But I had all top tier gear. So it's like anything could have been the one piece that got away. My Sony head units, um, my Diamond Audio Hex, my Audison LRX4, one of the first clean amps that I ever owned, my concept amps, my strokers. I had Alpine V12 amplifiers and didn't even appreciate them back then. I had all this top tier gear and just sold it off like, it's nothing. And looking back, I'm like, oh man, I should have kept some of it at least, but everything is gone, man. So, I mean, if I had to pinpoint it, I might, and this is so hard to say, but I might have to narrow it down to my Diamond Audio Hex because prior to Morel, Diamond Audio was the best speaker I ever heard. And matter of fact, when I got my diamonds, it was a toss between the German MB Court Q line, Diamond Audio Hex, and my car audio mentor always told me, he said Morel makes the best speakers he's ever heard, hands down. I didn't even know what Morel was at the time. And I went with Diamond Audio and absolutely loved it. My whole car club had Diamond because they loved the sound. Fast forward to this current Venza build, when I first built this car and upgraded the speakers, I went with MB Court, but unfortunately, MB Court is not what it used to be. So
Yeah.
I snatched them out and I said, you know what? Let me go with Morel and see what Richard was talking about all these years. And I started with entry level Morel and was blown away. I'm like, there's no way these entry level speakers can sound this good, but I thought Richard was right. And here I am, all the way to pretty much flagship Morel. I mean, from my experience, Morel Supremo Elite Carbon, I mean, blind testing, you would never be able to tell the difference. And I hate to say that out loud, but for me, I've heard Supremo, I've got Elite Carbon. It's diminishing returns at this point.
But also too, there's a realization that got a little bit older now is also you're driving, so there is background noise. Like you're not sitting in a parking lot at 2 a.m. with your eyes
Right.
closed, doing one of these. You know what I mean? There is, some life out there, and let's face it, life has got a little bit louder. You know what I mean in the world. So, like you said, it's diminishing returns. Not saying we might not be better or have some kind of response, but it's tough when you're everyday driving.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. And people say that often to me, like you're building an SQ system for your car, but it's in your car, so when you're driving, you're not going to hear the benefits of the SQ, which is
Yeah.
absolutely true. But in my videos, I don't make videos driving around demoing. I'm static. I'm sitting stationary, sometimes with the vehicle off, sometimes with it on, but it's off so I can hear the benefits of everything I have here. So if I did do Supremo, it might be worth it, but from the cars that I've heard with Supremo, I don't think so. But still, it's in this static environment where I get the benefit of it.
All right. Well, I have two questions I ask every person that comes on. First off, center, middle of the dash or middle of the steering wheel?
Middle of the dash, man. Center is center for me.
And what's your favorite demo track?
My favorite demo track right now is a song by a group called D Sound, and it's called Necessary Love. That is my favorite demo track because it's recorded expertly, and the mid bass and it's so solid, and it's not overly impactful, but it's not soft by any means, and it I won't say it will expose the system, but it's so expertly engineered to me that when I do a demo, I have to play it for people just so they can hear when that boom, when that mid bass kicks in. Ah man, that is my absolute go-to demo track.
Is it available on Spotify?
Absolutely, yeah. It's D Sound.
Send
D.
me the link. Yeah, send me the
Yeah,
link and I'll put it down below for the listeners.
yeah, man. D Sound. D apostrophe Sound, and the song is Necessary Love. I love it. I've demoed it on my channel a couple of times, but I'll definitely send you the link too.
All right. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, and I want to
Yes.
say thank you to you for being on
Thank you for doing this, man. I think both our audiences will appreciate this conversation, and this is something new. I've done a couple of SQ competitor walkthrough videos recently, and they got a lot of positive attention. And people are saying that they love this style of video for me, other than me just doing demos and talking about my system and stuff. So I love that you're doing this. It's absolutely for the community. It helps, and I'm glad you reached out to me, man. I'm honored. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate taking the time too as well.